You want me to hold that for you?
No, I'll go back and forth. All right. So, Mr. Sanchez, the first thing I want to say is that the rapport that you have with the scholars is awesome. And since you've been here, you've made a huge improvement to our sixth grade class specifically, but to all the scholars, not only in their depth of knowledge of math, but also in the way that they interact with you. You're teaching them so much more than just academics. So I applaud you for that. And it's really nice to have you as part of the team, taking on more than you need to, like Saturday Academy and things like that. We haven't really had one of these meetings yet. And the one thing that I told you when we spoke before you got started was that I wanted you to be using habits of discussion, and I have seen that a little bit in the class, but I think that's something that we're going to still work on, and I'll coach you in that. But today I wanted to debrief the lesson that we saw on January 30th. And you just let me know that you had a student tape it for you because I wasn't available at that time, and then you did the lesson twice. But either way, I'm going to show a piece of that lesson right now, and then I'm going to show you a piece of Miss Hamakawa's lesson. She's a 5th grade math teacher at Hazel Mahone College Prep, and I want you to look at what she does differently in this launch of the lesson. Okay, so first, here's your lesson.
Good. All right, scholars, we're going to fast forward because you guys already did that. Walking around the classroom, our double number line. Some basics of a double number line. My percent goes on top. On the bottom, I have numbers. I diagram or I label these points.
Okay, so I'm going to pause here and then I'm going to jump ahead real quick, but let me just make sure I'm understanding this correctly. At that point in the lesson, when you were circulating, because I always see you circulate, you were identifying a misconception. Is that true?
Well, this is something that the scholars, I think, should have been taught previously, how to make a double number line, and a lot of them still don't understand how to make a double number line. The question is asking them to make a double number line, so, they didn't even know how to, start. A lot of the scholars didn't even know how to make a double number line.
Okay.
And, so I'm just teaching them, or reteaching them, what a double number line should look like key components of a double number line.
Got you. Okay, so it sounds like there's some prereqs that they missed, and so you had to kind of teach them that.
Right.
So even with that in mind, I'm actually going to stop your lesson right there since that's what we just discussed. I want you to watch Miss Hamakawa and how she addresses. Let me just make sure I have the timestamps right. Okay.
Please track while LaShawn reads. On Saturday, Miss Shibaro took her dog Lola to their usual walk around Prospect Park. They always take their path.
Okay, I'm going to jump ahead a little bit. Basically, they're reading the prompt.
So how much farther will she need to?
Okay, here she's giving them a couple minutes, but they're all working independently. And that goes on for about 5 minutes of that independent work. Okay, take a look at what happens at the end. Eek. Okay, there we go.
I want to see a silent signal. Agree or disagree with the way this bar model looks? Okay. Jaden, I see that you're disagreeing. Why? Why are you saying that 3 and 1, let me rephrase. Why is Jaden telling us
Okay.
that 3 and 1
I'll jump ahead a little bit more too.
Do you agree or do you disagree with this one?
Okay, so she just said, do you agree or disagree with this one? So basically what Miss Hamakawa did was she show-called 2 scholars' work, okay? And thinking about the question that she was asking too, how was this lesson different than yours?
And how she tried to get the right answer?
Yeah.
Well, I'm guessing that maybe she had correct answers in her group and she showed them and said, do we disagree or agree?
Awesome. So she asked that open-ended question, and,
Right.
and that's what we're really trying to do with these achievement first lessons is start with that think about it problem, or that first problem, that challenge problem, have them work independently, and then show call scholars work. There's actually another video that I have of Miss Hamakawa where she doesn't have a correct answer and she still says agree or disagree and why. And this is where we can bring in those habits of discussion.
Okay.
So she had all of the scholars using silent signals. She was actually one of my teachers last year, and that was a big push for me, was that habits of discussion. And I want it true here too, but I haven't coached you a lot in this.
Okay.
So when she says, do you agree or disagree? The scholars are going like this or like this. And one thing that Miss Smith does is she has the scholars put their heads down, and then they either put a thumb up or a thumb down so that she can see whether they agree or disagree. She knows who to call on because she can see that, and then she takes the conversation from there. The one hiccup that we have though with our math scholars here at Allen Rowe is that there are a lot of gaps. So first, let's name the gap that we have in the lessons, and that would be right here. What would be the action step that I'm asking you to use for future lessons?
We'll have to show call scholars work.
Okay, and then start with what kind of question?
Do you agree or disagree?
Awesome. So that broad question. So why don't you write that action step, and then I'll talk too about how we can fill that gap also. Okay. And then, had you been show calling students work? You were kind of drawing the work yourself, right?
I do most of it myself, but sometimes there are scholars that actually understand it.
Okay.
Yeah.
So whether or not the scholars understand, I have two solutions to that problem where there is a gap in their learning. If you see somebody who has the right answer, you could show call their work and have them agree or disagree. But the other thing you can do, Ms. Hamakawa does it in a different video. She says, "Okay, scholars, last year one of my students did this, and then she drew it out, but it wasn't like this is my work. It was like this is another scholar's work. It just puts them in the mindset of this is the work done by someone my age, and I have to analyze that work." I think Saturday Academy is going to close some of those gaps, but we are still going to have some gaps. But I encourage you to follow that lesson plan where that first challenge problem is supposed to be more open-ended, more struggle problem, and then highlight the strategies that they're using that might lead to success. Okay. All right. So let's do a little bit of planning and practice. Think about the lesson that you're doing, because this was the 7th grade class. Think about the lesson that you're doing tomorrow. Okay, and I'm going to ask you to script the practice that you're going to be using right after you circulate and you find someone who's at least on the right track. And I want you to script what directions you're going to give them, or what wording you're going to use. Maybe even what she just said. Do you agree or disagree? Or if you want to do Miss Smith's, heads down and put a thumb up, thumb down. How are you going to guide the discussion to begin? Go ahead and script it for yourself right here in this space. Let me know if you have questions. Wow, you know your lessons really well. What does it say? Model?
Commission tip or tax.
Commission tip or tax. I thought that said, okay, thought that said something else. When you're doing this, you're usually at the front, so you can still show call a scholar's work and sit down. So for this practice, since you'll be sitting, we can still practice perfect with you sitting. Use the words that you're going to use to guide that discussion. So we can say action, and then go ahead and be the teacher.
Scholars, do you disagree or agree with this model? Sarah, why do you agree with this model?
Perfect. So that's the perfect way to start. One thing I'm going to ask you to do, since habits of discussion are somewhat new to you, I need to coach you on that and maybe even take you on some personal lessons on that. If you see some people doing this, praise that. Like, oh, I like how so-and-so is using that silent signal. I need to say 100%. You either agree or disagree. When I was in your classroom one day working with the 6th graders, it was really hard to get 100% participation. But it's either one or the other. They either agree or disagree, and they have to have an answer. So you can also encourage them to be risk takers. If they don't know the answer of why they agree or disagree, I agree because I think that the way that they did that, the equation is correct. And then if somebody disagrees, they can then do this, and you can lead the discussion in that way. Okay?